So by this time, you should have completed this assignment, your analysis of the painting American Progress. What we're going to do now is I'm not going to go through every potential observation that you could have made. There's a lot of things you could have seen here. And remembering that an observation is simply the things that you can see. It's not an interpretation of the meaning of that item that you see or those things that you see. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, but I do want to spend some time in interpretation. And so I'm going to scroll back and forth between the image and the questions just to help me remember what the questions are. So our first question says, based on your observations, what are three major differences between the left and right sides of the painting? So as we scroll back up, one of the first things we notice as we look at this is on the left it is dark, and on the right it is light. On the left we see wild animals, bear, we see bison, we see perhaps, and maybe those are wild horses, maybe that's deer or elk or something else. It's hard to say for me anyway, I can't see. And then on the right we see horses and oxen. We see wild on the left and domesticated on the right. We see on the left, we see Native Americans, and on the right, we see white Americans. And so those are some differences that we see. On the left, we see little technology, more older technology. On the right, we see more advanced technology. So those are some different observations you may have made, but there's many others you may have seen as well. Now, as we move on to the other question, it says, what would you guess the people are going? And there's lots of things you could have said here. You could have said they're going to California. You could say they're going to the West. You could have said they're going to Oregon or any number of places, and perhaps multiple places. And if you're thinking of the Native Americans, they're just going away from, they're going west because they're going away from the European settlers. I said European settlers, American settlers, European ancestry perhaps. So what two items is the woman angel bringing with her? So this woman is named Progress. And if we look back to the picture here, we see that she has a book and a telegraph line. And that book is actually, many people in my classes in the past have said that she's got a Bible. And it does seem like that's possible. But if you look closely on it, it says school book. So she's got a school book and she's got a telegraph line. She's bringing education with her. She's bringing communication with her, advanced communication. She's bringing enlightenment with her is another way to look at it. She's bringing that Western enlightenment, that Western way of doing things. Now, when we look here at this next question, it says, circle 1. According to the painting, life is becoming better or worse in America. So this is asking you according to the painting. In other words, according to the painter, according to the creator of this art, life is becoming better or worse. And you might think, well, how do I know what the artist is thinking here? Well, I think if we spend some time here, we can come to some conclusions. Notice first off, the left-hand side is the darker side. Well, that appears generally darkness is associated with difficulty, with hard times, with scary, with dangerous times. We notice the animals, bison and bear, are more dangerous. We know at that time Native Americans were often feared by Americans, and so we see a more rugged terrain on the left, and then on the right, what we see is what is in the light, and it looks more familiar to the American of that time. And so we're seeing a progression, and that's why it's called American Progress. So clearly this is the older, and as we go along we get to more modern technologies as we move across the painting. So Native Americans that are perhaps living as a hunter-gatherer lifestyle. Then we have a hunter, and then we have miners and prospectors. Here we have pioneers heading out to perhaps Oregon. Here we've got farmers, and so we go from hunter-gatherers to hunter still to prospector to farming, and so we see a progression, economic progression. We also are seeing here, we're seeing transportation progression. horse and travois. That's a travois, that sled that is being pulled. We see a wagon, a Conestoga wagon. We see the Pony Express. We see here we've got um, the overland stagecoach. And many of you probably associate that red overland stagecoach with Wells Fargo. Well, Wells Fargo starts during this time, bringing gold back from California to the east. And so that is from this time. And so then we go from the covered overland um, wagon to the trains and even some perhaps steamboats and other kinds of sailing ships in the background. And so we see progress happening in all of these different situations. So it's clearly what they're showing is that what is happening. The artist is saying this is a good thing. This is progress that's happening. And so it is an example of the manifest destiny thinking. Look, we talked about how manifest destiny means it's inevitable, it's going to happen. Well, by 1872, it's happened, but also that it was justified. In other words, this is an example of how they're showing how they think it's justified. Old ways are disappearing and new, better ways are coming along. Education is coming, better transportation, better communication, better ways of feeding yourselves are coming along. Now, of course, that's this artist interpretation. We can certainly recognize today that there's real loss that's happening. Um, Natural habitats perhaps are being lost. Cultures are being lost. The buffalo is nearly wiped out. And so there is certainly loss, but the perspective of this artist is not showing that loss. So that gives us, a lot of different things to think about. I just wanted to go over some of those things for you. Hopefully, you have a better understanding about what this painting is all about, and hopefully, therefore, a better understanding of what manifest destiny itself is all about. Because this painting really is a great symbol of manifest destiny. When you think manifest destiny, you think James K. Polk, and you think this painting, American Progress.